G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/JustnoHOA. Now if you hate the HOA like I do, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a like on the video, a prawn on the Barbie would be very much appreciated, and enjoy the content. Posted by user, short end of the shtick, titled, Minnesota HOA says they won't permit me to cut down my tree, arborist says the tree needs to come down, ASAP, because it is in dangerous condition. I made a mistake 3 years ago of buying a property in an HOA neighborhood. At the time, the regulations were relaxed, but a new board has taken over and they are nuts. Last year, after my neighbor cut down a tree and the HOA was mad about it, they made a new rule that to cut a tree down, you must get HOA permission. And if you remove a tree without HOA permission, you must pay the HOA the value of the tree. Love a bit of tree law. Basically, they consider the tree to be of value to the whole neighborhood, not just you. My problem is that I have a very mature tree, arborist said around 80 plus years, that has been struck by lightning. I brought out an arborist to assess it and see if it could be helped, and the arborist says it cannot be saved. They said it is in dangerous condition and should be removed immediately, and if I don't get it down before it starts to drop, it will do serious damage to my property or my neighbors. I informed the HOA of my plan to cut down the tree. They said no. They said they need proof that it's actually dangerous. I got a statement from the arborist, who also provided a diagram of its faults, and despite this, the HOA still says no. Someone on the board insists he knows trees, and mine is fine, and that the arborist is just looking to make bank by referring me to someone who will give them a cut of what I pay them to cut it down. I've gone to 4 meetings to plead my case, paid for a second arborist's opinion, and have gone directly to individual board members to persuade them. Nothing has worked. At this point, the tree is such a liability, I have made plans to have it removed beginning next week. I can't afford for it to come down. But my other concern is, the HOA claims if I take it down without permission, I owe them the value of the tree. I can't pay them tens of thousands of dollars just because they're unreasonable. In fact, I believe they are intentionally not giving me permission, so I will be forced to pay the money. What now? This is lawyer time, I think. A consult with a real estate attorney won't cost that much money, and it certainly will be cheaper than the fine the HOA is threatening to levy. Unfortunately, I have to agree. At this point, you're looking at attempting to get an order from a judge to require the HOA to permit the tree's removal. Otherwise, you risk damage to your property and then suing the HOA for the costs should it occur. Your guess as to which is cheaper, faster, and easier. The arborist says it's an immediate danger, so I've made plans to have it taken down starting Monday, one way or another. If the main split falls, it will destroy my home and garage. At this point, should I be cancelling that and trying to get an order from a judge? I'm worried about how long that might take. Upon the advice here, I have called half a dozen lawyers, and no one even wants to meet me until next week. In that case, I would suggest you get a quote for the value of the tree from your arborist, aka $0, as it was an immediate danger and therefore has no value, but you will definitely still need to contact an attorney. Please note that cancelling the arborist may void homeowners insurance if it were to fall on your home or garage. Big this. Call your insurance company and a public adjuster. They might request documents from the arborists and pictures, and I'm confident that they will vehemently insist that the tree be removed ASAP to remove the hazard. And a public adjuster works for you, not the insurance companies. They will ask for a copy of your entire insurance policy, look it over, and see what is up. Typically, they will not have any action to take unless there's a claim, and they usually don't get paid unless a claim is won, so they have a vested interest in making sure the insurance company pays out as much as the policy allows. But they are typically very helpful, and might be able to freely explain further liabilities for not getting the hazard removed even if there is no claim. Also, who knows? Maybe there's a clause in your property insurance which states that the tree is insured against lightning strikes. Not likely, but possible. You could try that angle towards any public adjuster who is not interested in speaking with you. These calls, records, and information from the insurance company and the adjuster could very well all be beneficial to your case. in the event that you end up in court with the HOA. Hey, I'm a certified arborist myself. You should go on the ISA website and find a local tree risk assessor. They can do legal reports, and if you end up going to court, you want something that came from someone with a TRAQ. The opinion of a normal arborist might not be good enough. Get the HOA to provide you an assessment of the tree's worth. Anyone called in to perform the assessment should confirm the tree's health and agree with your arborist to cut it down. This seems too simple though. Posted by user Inner Minna Mermaid, titled, My First HOA Violation and HOA Requirements. Hey all. Warning, context is long and I'm on a phone. I did my best with formats. So I just purchased a condo in November 2019 in Ohio that is managed by a property management company. I recently received a violation letter. 6 months in, super exciting, for decor placed on the outside of my unit. One of the violations was for a large wooden black letter hanging on my front door, of which I am responsible for replacing and maintaining, which is the first initial of my last name, and, confusingly, a plaque with our unit number on it that we put up to replace the old numbers that fell off. The rules indicate we can't hang anything on the outside of the unit or door, and I took that to mean we aren't allowed to screw anything into the siding or brick. The number plaque is hanging by picture wire from our porch light. You can't see the wire, and we're responsible for maintaining and replacing the fixture too. The letter was on the door with an outdoor command strip type hook. Our unit is townhouse style and street facing, so while I think it's incredibly stupid, I get the keeping the decor to a minimum and did remove the letter hanging on my front door. I have not removed the address plaque yet, as I feel it's a safety issue to not have our unit clearly marked with a number in the event emergency services need to identify our units. I emailed the property management company for clarification as soon as I received the letter, but we're terrible about getting our mail, so the letter is a couple of weeks old. It has only been a day, but I didn't receive a response via email, nor the phone call from the property manager, which I requested in the email. While I was waiting for a response, I was reviewing bylaws, and it states that I should have received a projected budget from the board by December 1st, and they are also required to have at least one board meeting a year, which they are required to notify the members at least 1 week in advance. It is possible that the meeting and projected budget being sent since I moved in late in the year, but I think it's more likely neither of these things actually happened. Now for my questions. 1. When I've talked to the property manager in the past, she's always had to go to the back of the board for approval or to get questions answered. Is there any way I can find out who was on the board myself and communicate with them directly? 2. Am I allowed to find out when the last meeting was and what the meeting content was? 3. How do I request the proposed budget information for the year? 4. If the proposed budget was sent and the meeting was held while I was living here but I was not notified, what can I do? We aren't planning on living here forever, but I don't want to rock the boat too hard and make life miserable for however long we do live here, but I'm not going to let them walk all over me either. Thanks in advance. Unfortunately, people didn't like this post and they said, send a certified letter to the property management company requesting the documents. Expect them to make excuses about why they can't get them to you right away and then charge you a fee for them, which seems to be the sad reality of life in an HOA. Posted by user Anonymous Lots of Letters, titled, Am I the a-hole for going to the HOA to force my neighbor to take her frog statuette down? Recently, I, 35 female, my husband, 34 male, and my daughter, 6 female, started to walk because of coronavirus. We've been doing the same route every day, and it's about 2 miles, and there aren't a lot of cars, so it's a really good route. Recently, one of our neighbors put up a frog statuette up for display outside of their house. I find it really creepy, and so does my husband. My daughter hates it. She is absolutely terrified of it. Now she refuses to go on walks. Earlier today, I went to the house to ask them to move the statuette so it is no longer on display. I knocked on the door and a middle-aged man, maybe 55, opened the door. I told him the situation and he seemed sympathetic, but he said that he and his wife really like the display so they won't be taking down that statuette. After that, I talked to my next-door neighbor. He is the vice president of the HOA, so I was wondering if he could force them to take the statuette down. He said that the statuette might be in violation of HOA bylaws. He went to look at it, and sure enough, it is. Now they're being forced to take down the statuette, and are being fined for violating the bylaws. My husband says that I took it too far. I see it differently. The statuette is destroying the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and is scaring the children. Am I the a-hole? TLDR, I got the HOA to take down my neighbor's statuette, which was scaring my child. Edit, a lot of people wanted to see a picture of the frog, so here is a link. He kinda just looks like a cute, chill frog. He maybe has some worms in that vial, but he's not doing anything wrong, is he? I'm gonna say yeah, OP is the a-hole for doing that and going to the HOA. HOAs are our arch nemesis, and we cannot allow them to exist. Imagine going to someone and be like, hey, I don't like their statue they got in front of their house. Grr, it makes me angry. Fine them hundreds of dollars and make them take it down. I don't like it, I'm offended. HOAs are evil. If you side with an HOA, you're the a-hole, OP. You're the a-hole. It was just a statue. Explain to your child not to be afraid of it. Info, can you post a picture too? I want to see the nightmare frog. Edit, I saw the frog. OP, you are still very much you're the a-hole. That frog isn't scary. Explain to your child that they don't need to be afraid of it and move on. Running to the HOA over every problem isn't a good way to handle issues. Hijacking the top comment to say in another comment, OP says the statue was just over a foot tall. A foot tall? How is that terrifying to a child? The statue was frightening the child because the kids pick up their parents' moods. The kids saw or sensed that the parents have a stick up their behinds about a silly, harmless lawn ornament, and so the kid hated the statue too. If the parents had said, oh look, what a funny frog statue, the kid would have loved it. OP's daughter is going to be that kid that cries when you compliment their drawing, because does that mean you didn't like any of the other ones I did? My inner child shudders at the memory. You're the a-hole. It's a statue, it's not scaring the children. It's scaring your one child, and rather than try to help her deal with that totally irrational fear, you force them to take it down. This kind of bullcrap is why anyone with sense doesn't want to live in a neighborhood with an HOA. Posted by user Ethan Winfield, titled, Recourse, Stressful Living Conditions. My 24-year-old daughter and her boyfriend live in community with approximately 25 condos. They are in the upper corner unit, so they have one shared wall and a floor/ceiling situation. In the 2 years since they moved in, we've had around 15 complaints. At first, the neighbor complained directly to her via text. It got to be so stressful, she told him she's a tenant and please contact the homeowner. Many of the problems have been somewhat vague noise complaints. It's 2 of them and 2 indoor cats. They complained that someone was showering at 11 p.m. They complained that they could hear the water leaking. They didn't hear it until she had a plumber come out, so it must be her fault. We had to provide statements from the plumber, and the HOA got an independent plumber who also confirmed there was no leak anywhere. They complained the cats were running around at 9 p.m. My daughter put down rugs and padding designed to block the noise, still got complaints. The latest complaint was for storing a vehicle/expired tag. I asked which car and when this was. The response I received was that the complaint said the car hadn't been moved in 3 months. Again, I asked which car. As soon as they find out, they'll get back to me. 1. My daughter has previous texts stating parking her car for more than 72 hours when she is out of town wasn't a problem. 2. The 3 months would be during the time of the stay-at-home orders for COVID-19. 3. They left the condo during that time to buy groceries and attend work meetings. The neighbor who keeps complaining is on the HOA board. He also rents out his condo through Airbnb. None of his reviews have mentioned any noise problems, and he gets around the HOA rules about Airbnb by staying there with the guest. Other than selling and moving, what recourse do we have? File harassment claims against them. They have no proof and blame you for things out of your hands. This way there is a record of their past complaints and how petty they are. This will be a 2-factor thing. Either things will get easier or they will get much worse. But do not work with the other owner. Work with the management company first. And probably don't need to get a lawyer involved unless there are fines or the other owner starts getting more involved and you need to file a cease and desist order. This just illustrates how ridiculous and unreasonable these people are being. How can they expect to dictate when someone takes a shower? Hate to say it, but you can shower at 11 PM as long as you aren't singing an opera. And no cat is going to make enough noise to disturb the neighbors unless it's literally knocking vases off of bookshelves at 2 AM. This wasn't in an HOA, but the first apartment I rented, I was on the 3rd floor, this neighbor was on the 2nd immediately underneath me, complained our cats were too loud. She filed a complaint that made the management come inspect to make sure we didn't get a dog or moving furniture. This place didn't have rules against dogs and cats, just the number you could have and a monthly pet fee. She eventually started harassing us, and the manager actually ended up feeling bad for us and tried to get her to be reasonable that she was no longer allowed to contact us. She was banging on our door at all hours and texting us to keep quiet. The final straw that made management allow us to just switch apartments because she was just crazy was when the 2.5-pound 3-month-old kitten was playing with a hat at 2 AM. And she thought banging on her flooring under the bedroom was a reasonable action, and we filed a noise complaint on her, along with the harassment that was documented. This was the 4th, by my count, person who lived in that unit, and none of the previous ones complained. Previous to her, we had a 10-pound ragdoll, and after she moved in, we got a tiny 8-week tabby. The week we moved, she called the cops on children who were playing supervised on the playground at 5 PM that was next to our building. The entire community got an email stating that quiet hours were after 10 PM and that children were allowed to play on the playground as they also live here. She was a complete psycho, to the point I fear she'd drive around the complex to find my vehicle, an alien green Kia Soul, very recognizable, and harass us more. Unfortunately, this is one of the risks of living in an HOA/condo, or crazy town as I like to call them. HOAs and condos seem to be a breeding ground for crazy people. Send a certified letter to the property manager saying that you want this to stop and that your tenant is not making any noise or violating any bylaws, rules, or CC&Rs. Tell the property manager that if your tenant continues to be harassed by this person, you will seek legal counsel and be prepared to follow up. Posted by user Scrotties15, titled, Flooring Dispute, Is This Worth Pursuing Legally? We recently submitted an application to get our floors done. Our flooring of choice has an IIC rating of 66 and an STC rating of 68. Our application was denied because our HOA's architectural committee says the IIC rating needs to be 72 or higher. When I looked in the CC&Rs, there is no mention of a specific IIC requirements. There is only verbiage on having a sound transmission rating greater than or equal to that of cushion floor tile or carpeting over a heavy-duty foam pad having thickness of at least 1/2 inch. From what I've found online about IIC and STC, we have a superior sound transmission rating and a very high IIC rating. When I brought this up to our community manager and mentioned that there is no specific IIC requirement, she told me that the board believes that the 72 IIRC rating will meet the requirements. I do not agree that their belief is enough to reject our flooring. Is this worth pursuing legally? Nope. The HOA will probably win the case, using the HOA's money to pay for court fees and such. Source, President of an HOA. New this year and found out how HOAs have absolute power over everything and how corrupt it is. Well, damn. Aside from the corruption, we technically aren't wrong, right? I just don't understand why the CC&Rs only list a vague STC requirements and yet they deny me based off an IIC that isn't even defined. Trust me, even if you are right, they will probably still be legally able to do as they please. Crazy, but this is how HOAs run. They do not protect homeowners. They can do and act immorally and unethically, but that doesn't matter if legally they are protected, which is how corruption comes into place. Just tell them, instead of redoing your floors, since you're not approved, you're going to put the money to something more productive, like a ham radio tower. Hell yeah! You might win, but at what cost? Better to find other unhappy owners and get yourself onto the board. Well, as a young and naive first-time homeowner, we already purchased the flooring, and now our mistake needs to be fixed by either somehow getting to the HOA's approval or adding caulk underlayment at an estimated additional $3,000, not including labor. I had new flooring installed in my kitchen and dining. I really wish I had some underfloor installed. The flooring I chose is too thin. When I walk on it, I can feel in my feet the imperfections in the underfloor. This was masked by the previous thicker floor. I know this has nothing to do with you, but maybe there can be additional benefits to installing more underfloor. Very true. I'm sure there will be some benefits, and thank you for the positive perspective. We are stressing over here, so it's been hard to picture a good outcome. I just moved into my second home. First home was single story. Installed hardwood floors, no problem. Soon as we moved into the new one, I did the same, but bought expensive, nice solid planks. I did about 1,200 square foot, and it's beautiful. All in, like $10,000 for materials. No laborers, that was all me. Not a day goes by I don't wish I had put down underlayment. I put down a vapor barrier, as manufacturer rec stated, but never a thought to sound, and I definitely regret it. It sounds like you were technically right, but it really doesn't matter. Even if you were to win, you would pay more in legal fees. It would be over a year before a judgment, and all the while your project has been on hold for over $3,000? I think buying the sound dampening underlayment is the right call, even without considering the HOA. Consider it the price of peace of mind. I remember being in your position, reading over every rule and trying to beat them at their game. The thing is, the game is fixed and they interpret the rulebook. Posted by user Galagossage1998. Titled, Property Management Has Crap Internet Contract. So, has anyone had problems with internet connection speeds in their apartments? For a year now, I've had an internet connection of 20 megabytes per second, and as you all may know, it's the most basic and worst internet connection you can get from any provider. I tried going to Xfinity to have them upgrade it, but they say that the contract that the property management company has with them is fixed, and therefore can't upgrade my connection at all. Is there any way to bypass this? Is it possible to go to competition like AT&T? If it's the property management having a contract, then there's nothing you can do to get around it. You're renting the space from the property management, and they own your unit. You could try contacting a competitor. It's possible that they could have the service to your apartment, and you've got nothing to lose. Is this a case where your internet is included with your rent and you don't pay Xfinity directly? I know places that advertise this are notorious for having the worst service imaginable, and then you're locked into whatever that is with no other option while living there. If that's the case, your only option is to move when you can. I will try going to AT&T. You're right, I have nothing to lose. It's just weird to me because I've gone to Xfinity, and when it comes to cable and TV, they've let me add as many cable boxes as I want, and they charge me the difference. So what's so different with the internet? Like, I don't see why the property management wouldn't still cover the 20 megabyte per second speed, and whatever I decide to upgrade it to, I pay the difference. Also, I don't rent from them. My aunt owns the apartment, but she obviously pays HOA. Do you have 5G available? Might be worth looking into pricing for cellular data and going that route. I know my husband and I couldn't survive on 20 megabytes per second. We'd break the lease if there really was no other option. Totally, especially in today's world of working from home. As a Canadian, lol, data prices are much better now, but we're only 4 years away from our old prices. $100 for 2 gigs of data. Canada is a great country, but your internet and mobile seems like it's always been pretty lousy. Don't know how you all deal with it. As someone that previously worked for a managed services provider, the contracts were never 100% exclusive, and if a resident was unhappy with anything, they were welcomed to get their own, fully priced service from the main ISP, or alternatives that were available in the area. This just isn't true. There is only a single choice for internet at my apartment. You either go through them or you get nothing. Is that because it's the only thing offered in the area, or the only thing the apartment allowed? Only thing apartment allows. We have AT&T, Xfinity, and Spectrum in the area. Well, that sucks. I'm stuck with Spectrum. I really hate them as a company for many devious and underhanded reasons, because it is the only internet available. Posted by user Lawshire, titled Best Professional Profile for HOA Board Members? As a renter who has not yet owned a home, HOA or otherwise, and is currently looking to buy a home, I'm considering moving into a suburban neighborhood with a hefty HOA. I am torn about this because I never thought I'd even consider an HOA community simply based on all the horror stories I see on Reddit. For example, I don't want to be told that I can't park my car in my own driveway. I don't want people coming onto my property to measure my lawn and cut my weeds to then charge me for it. I definitely don't want nosy people to break items on my property for the sole reason of writing me up. However, this is a truly gorgeous community. It looks like there are plenty of community events, and the amenities are extremely well maintained. I'm beginning to wonder, could it be worth it? It looks like the board members of this HOA are mostly finance types, mostly people who work in banks, a high-powered lawyer, or two working in class actions and bank litigation, etc. My impression was that bad HOAs are typically composed of sad, lonely people who don't have much going on in their lives and like to assert artificial power over people by forming a little HOA clique and writing up infractions, just because they like the power. However, my impression of this HOA is that it is composed of uber-successful, extremely busy professionals who manage big projects and teams for a living. None of them seem like the typical bored neighbor looking for a way to bring meaning into their lives through the HOA. They seem like super competent people who have more things going on in their jobs that would bring them more satisfaction than being top dog in an HOA. Am I deluding myself here? There are quite a few restrictions. E.g., you have to get express written permission from the HOA before removing trees, installing a doghouse and shed, no open fires allowed, garage doors must stay closed when not in use, white curtains facing the road, etc. There is a professional landscaping service company involved, and this company has a permanent seat on the HOA board. I'm not a fan of restrictions generally, but could live with these, if this is a fair HOA that isn't writing up fines for people who are truly trying to follow the rules. The property and amenities are amazing. I'm going to try and chat with people who currently live in the neighborhood to see how restrictive and annoying this HOA actually is. Does the profile of this HOA, high-powered professionals, sound like any HOAs you've dealt with personally? Could it be a sign that it will be well run, not by a bully? You are making a lot of assumptions, my friends. Finance executives and lawyers on your board? I don't think they are going to be any less vigilant in their duties on the HOA board than in their highly motivated, uber-successful professional lives. If they are so busy, why would they even be on the board? To exert control and authority. Lawyers on the board will be the worst. You already seem willing to make compromises in your property rights that seem palatable now. Your opinion of the HOA shouldn't be based on assumption of the members, since you don't know them. Some of the sad, lonely people could be the nicest neighbors, if you get past your superficial assessment of them. Judge the HOA by its actions. To me, having people that tell me I can only have white curtains, I need their approval for a doghouse in my backyard, and I must keep my garage doors closed, what is the definition of not in use, is just as intrusive as telling me I can't park my car in my driveway. I also do not like the service company having a permanent seat. It means they are unaccountable and you can't get rid of them. Any service company should report to the board, not be a part of it. Quick related anecdote. My cousin's HOA had a similar rule about open garage doors. I only know because he was warned about it while working in his yard. He had left it open in order to access his tools in the garage. No bueno. He was expected to open and close the door each time that he needed to enter and exit. Landscaping company having a permanent seat on the board is a huge flag. Screams corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. Also, my HOA secretary, who's been an administrative assistant all her life, constantly uses words like, Before entering the medical field, doctor's office assistant, I used to work for a multinational law firm as a lawyer's assistant, so take the high-powered part with a grain of salt. My HOA is fine right now. The HOA I lived in before was fine while I lived there. I moved out, but turned that home into a rental, so I still deal with that HOA, and they've turned into a minor nightmare. Can't figure out how to properly vet a pool resurfacing company. Kids got bloody feet from that bad job, and the pool had to be shut down and redone. They never inspected the job being done. They cut down tons of trees that needed to be removed, but tons that didn't because it looks odd. For frick's sake, that's expensive. Then they had issue with one of my tenants. Fine, that tenant is removed. Then they actually wanted a clause in my lease that's flat unenforceable from an HUD standpoint. They want to vet the tenants to make sure they fit in. No, that's illegal. I point that out, and they say I'll lose my rental status. I say I'll report them to the HUD for violating fair housing practices, and everything is in writing. I got my approval without the clause. Unfortunately, in my area, the only homes built in the last 35 years are in HOAs. The pickings are slim for a non-HOA. Alright guys, that's the end of today's episode. I'm gonna chuck you to outro Markee. Hope you guys have a good day-night sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one today. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I would love you to subscribe because I love your face and I love seeing you here every single day that you are here in this video. I don't know what else to say today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. I do have a second channel that's called Markee 2. Link should be up on the screen somewhere here if you don't have adblock installed. If you don't know where to find the channel, you can go to my main page. Just click on the Markee face and it should be on the right somewhere there, or on channels if you're on phone. Hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.